Hello, Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to your ninth session of Book Clubs Across Borders between Lahore and Panjsher. The book that we are discussing today is The Crow Eaters by Bapsi Sidhwa. Bapsi Sidhwa basically wrote this book to make people understand the rituals and traditions of Parsi community living in South Asia, especially in Lahore and Bombay. The book is set in pre-partition Lahore, where Faridun Jangalwala brings in his family, starts a new business, and you can see how nutty and funny Parsi community can be. So before we start our conversation, I would like to ask my colleague Ayman Imran to give a brief summary of this book, and then we will go towards our students and get their views on the book. So Ayman, over to you.
Okay, so hi, I'm Eamon from CAP, and so I'll just give you a small summary of The Crow Eaters. It's written by Bapsi Sidhwa, right? So basically, the story is kind of like a fictional saga of a Parsi family. And by describing the story of a Parsi family, a very ordinary Parsi family, the book basically gives like a general account of Parsi life in the subcontinent before the partition and during British rule, right? And it also gives like the communities an account of the community's social behavior and their value systems and their customs. And it does so through a kind of a gentle interweaving of um, large scale sort of ideas uh, and experiences of Parsi existence in the subcontinent in history, and a sort of a domestic life that is also influenced by the culture of the subcontinent, and a kind of a humorous description of that domestic life and interweaving it with the general sort of setting of the culture and society. Um, so yes, it kind of attempts to trace their migration, Parsi migration from northern area, from the west coast to northern Indian cities, and it really alludes to what has been recorded in history as the Parsi rise, which happened after their migration because they were more receptive to the rule of the British in the subcontinent. Kind of emerged out of the large-scale Hindu-Muslim kind of a clash going on during the British rule, and how they capitalized on that. So here also Parsis were more receptive to British rule, and therefore they kind of moved towards the port areas where all the construction and was going on, and all the new businesses were being established, and British development was taking place, and they kind of assumed this identity of traders and merchants and businessmen in general. So this story also then focuses on the main character, which is the kind of the head of the family, or average patriarchal head of the family, Faridun Jangalwala, who's called Freddy throughout the book, right? And then he has this um, mother-in-law, Jerbanu, whom he always is having these on and off kind of clashes with, wo jo aapka general saas bahu kind of scenario hota hai in the subcontinent. So that is kind of going on here. And he has a wife, Putli, and that kind of a banter, or let's say give and take, or kind of a clash is presented through various events in the story. And yeah, so it's presented through various events of the story, and it's presented in a very humorous, sort of a light-hearted manner. Although the events are pretty serious, he actually sets fire to his, um, his shop and all. And I'll come to that in a bit. And he kind of goes to, this peer figure, or this priest, right? In Parsi traditions, to just get rid of his mother-in-law, and which is pretty serious, but it is portrayed in a sort of a humorous, kind of a black comedy-ish way, right? Coming to the importance of wealth and all, right? So he is shown as somebody who kind of aims to accumulate wealth because he is a businessman and he thinks in those terms. And he in the story also commits insurance fraud by setting his entire business on fire, and he really profits from that. And it does allude to this trend of insurance fraud that was going on during British times. So it is in these parts of the story where you can really feel the historical fiction genre really setting in. And yeah, so there are other characters. Of course, he has sons who have to inherit his business, so he's constantly worried about that, and that also goes on in the story and how he faces the death of one son and how he goes to the priest and does all these uh, cultural kind of requirements. He fulfills those, and he resorts to various customs to avoid that, but he cannot avoid that tragedy. And then his son decides to marry somebody who he deems as not acceptable, because I think it's an Anglo Indian girl, yeah, and Anglo Indian girl, and he doesn't give him permission to marry outside the community, which again shows you that at various points you can see in the story that there is a constant urgency or kind of a need to preserve Parsi community, and they're always on survival mode, and that shows at points like these where he does not allow his son to marry outside the community. Of course, however, later the marriage happens between the sister of that girl and his son, and I think the son's name is yes, it was Yazdi, right? So and then of course the most one of the most important things that happens is their visit to England. Right after the son gets married and he settles down with his wife, Freddie visits England with his wife and his mother-in-law, and that is important because it's over there that their ideals of the British as rulers are shattered, because they see them as ordinary individuals in an English community rather than rulers at home, right? And they get in trouble over there, and they sort of then come back. And I think one of the most important things that happens is what the story actually ends on, where he tells his family that if partition ever happens, they must side with the rulers for to ensure their own survival. And that is where the theme of survival for the Parsis and how difficult their life, perhaps their community's life, has been in this in this society as a minority, has and that really kind of sets in towards the end of the story. So yeah.
So Muhammad Lahore, I'm a person of Panjsher BCAB. Well, nobody actually eats crows in the book. Bob said was now as Pakistan's first major English language novelist. She belongs to the tiny Parsi community, whose numbers have continued to dwindle. They are almost threatened with extinction, as are Lucius community. This book is an entertaining account of their way of life in early 20th century Lahore. They worship fire and live there, did, in the towers of silence, where wild animals and vultures can tear off pieces of their flesh. For me, the best thing about the book was it was trademark humor. She has a natural gift for it. Ironically, it was the same humor which often offended some persons and made the novel a bit controversial. The bigger significance of this book is that they finally introduced a Pakistani English language novelist to a wider international audience. Satwa had real struggle publishing it, but later successfully followed. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, hello, I am Hussein Ayubi from Panjsher BCAB. I want to tell you something about the present book, The Crow Eaters by BBC Sidway. As it is killer and the relationship between Freddy and Giovanni as mother-in-law and no was not very good. And part 8 I have got from book that Mr. Freddy changed his behavior and attended he behaved very respectfully with her and told the children to respect elders very well and told has a one wife putly to call your children in the afternoon. We are Germano sleep from Freddy's behavior. Germano ashamed and she also decided to change her behavior as well. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Rona Rashidi. I am one of participants from Panjsher Book Club across borders. I am going to talk about this description of the book of Carrot Atras by B. Saidawa Awad. Known Pakistan novelist from Ateni Parsi community with the air and the genre of expression because of the year religion Zoroastrian. At the dawn of the 20th century in Pakistan, Faredi Jangalun Mofis, his family threatening wife Bedatar and Jabunu, his pretended mother, and learned from their ancestors from whom to completing Lahore. He opens a story and he has his Persian girls this the intermarriage between Freddy and his mother and Lam while Freddy prospers under British ruling life with the Dominic Jabano his under middle tonally. This novel full of relating humor paints a visual picture of life at the of the Parsi community. Thank you.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Hello to everyone. I am Sohrab Ahmadi, one of the participants of Panjsher Provers Book Club Cross Border. I want to say something about the book of the Crow Eaters that I was reading. The Parsi community is quite small but influential for its relative size. This novel is very weighty and will writing a story about one Parsi family. At the beginning of the story, Freddy, to everyone, Jangalwala, recently married to Putli, moves his family to Lahore. His family consists of Putli, Freddy, and his mother-in-law. In part, this novel may seem like one long mother-in-law joke, as Freddy and his mother-in-law, Jirvanu, clearly don't get along. He plots to get rid of her and nearly succeeds in various ways, and when he doesn't and is resigned to putting up with her. There is a running and very funny battle between them. It's not all about Freddy and Jirvanu. Freddy makes his way in Lahore and becomes a successful businessman, starting an insurance route and moving on up. He has 7 children, and we follow their activities, particularly Billy, who became one of the richest but also one of the steinest men in India. Sid was clearly attached in her community but realistic enough to paint their fabulous. But when it comes down to it, it is the upright struggle between Freddy and his mother-in-law that makes this book so enjoyable. And at the end, I want to have a thanksgiving from the foundation of this program and teacher Hafiz Regi. Thanks very much. Have a good time. Bye bye.
In the name of Allah, Hello everyone, I hope you are fine. My name is Mohammed Kharam Akrami. I am from Panjsher Book Club. What is my opinion about this book? I found this book very enjoyable, comedy and funny book. And The Crow Eater is a fiction novel book by a very famous Pakistani novelist, Babsi Silwa, in 1987. I I think this book was about a Parsi family, and mainly about the main character of the book, Faradin. Faradin is from a very tiny community of Zoroastrian that we call them Zardashti. It was about their religion, cultures, and ceremonies. Freddy Jangalwala moved from India to Lahore to start a new life there with his wife Putula, mother-in-law Jerbonu, and his son and daughters. He started a business and became a very rich merchant in Lahore of Punjab province. And Freddy faced some problems and horrible ways. The spotlight of story shines brightest on the relationship of the breadwinner to his mother-in-law. I really enjoyed from this story of Parsis, and it was a new experience to read about Zoroastrian and India history. It was my idea about this book. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paimon, and I am from Panjsher Book Club across border. I want to talk about the book of the Bobsy Sidwa. It is called Crow Eaters. In this, I found an enjoyable story about the family of the Jangalwala. It was called Freddy. Jangalwala Freddy is their name, and the people call him Jangalwala. And now I want to say something about Jangalwala. A young Parsi merchant called Freddy. Jungle from the central India tract, and his wife child and indomitable mother-in-law over 1,000 miles, and they recently called to start a new wife and Lohar. The jungle was the size of a small community from the four family to the five, but despite being tuned as crow eaters by local skin children due to the volume of their conversation to find a toilet home and a good place to the content and their business. Unfortunately, for the Freddy Jangalwala, he can't always find the some good place for their own home because of their mother-in-law. Uh, mm, because of their mother-in-law, and the other story. Because of some problem I cannot read correctly, so this was my information about this book. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Javed. I am from Panjsher Book Club across border. I want to talking about the summary of the Crew Actors book by Babsis Saldway. The Parsi community is a quite small but influential for its relative size. This novel is a very witty and well writing story about one Parsi family. At the beginning of the story is Feridun Ferdi. To everyone, Jangalwala recently marriages to Portal. The Portal movies has family to Lahore. His family's consists Portalis Freddy and has murders and law. In part, this novel might seem like one long murders and law joke. Has Freddy and has murders and law Jerbonu. Jeroboam clearly do not get along. He politics to get ready of here and nearly successes and various ways. And when he does not and is resonate to pointing up. Wait here there is this ironic and very funny battle between battle between them. It is not all about Freddy and Way and Freddy Girbonu. Freddy makes his way in Lahore and becomes a successful businessman, starting with insurance, fruit and movies on up. He has 7 children, and we following their activities, particularly Bali, who becomes one of their richest, but also one of the strongest man. And India Sadhu is clearly attached to her communities, but realistic enough to point their foibles, but when it comes down to it, it is the struggle between Freddy and his mother's Allah that makes this book so enjoyable. Thank you.
Name of Allah, I am Naqib Sangi, one of participated of book salary program. In this volume, our book is called Bobsy Sat Home. It was a great book for us. I was able to learn interesting stories from this book. The bookseller program is one of the best program for the growing of word study culture. I want to say that the Babsi Sado book several section. Each section told us a new story. Babsi Sado book has 46 section. Each section of this book was more interesting for me. Like when Feridun Jangalwala, pioneer and adventurous traded into Lahore in bullock cart at the turn of the century. There were only 30 Persian in the city of over the million Hindu and Muslim and Sikhs. Um, 20, and Sikh. 20 years later, the number of Persian in Lahore had swelled to almost 300. 300. The end, thanks to those who launched this app. Thank you. Bye bye.
Hello, this is Rashad Ahmadi from Panjsher BCAB. I want to tell you something about one of Crow Eater's character. He is called Tadiwala. When Freddy comes to Lahore, he visits the Parsi families residing already in Lahore. Tadiwalas are one of them. The Tadiwalas, a large joint family, where the proprietors of a prosperous still, and Mr. Tadiwala is the head of family. He is an easygoing and witty man. Freddy seems to be at good drums with the Tadiwalas at the theme of exhaustion, the drama of setting fire to has a store. He announces that he is taking the family to the Todiwalas for a game of cards. Mr. Todiwala is a man of vast relations who can arrange different meetings at his home. When Harilal comes running to tell about the fire, we see Mr. Gobbins, the the deputy uh, deputy superintendent of police, and Mr. Azim Khan, a Muslim professor. Dear Mr. Todiwala, Mr. Todiwala is a friendly man who.
I hope you're fine. This is Zabur from Panjsher BCAB. I'm going to talk about career address. The career address by Pavisi Sedwa, Pakistani newlist, is a comedy fan and funny book. This book start made with the name of main character of the book, Ferdinand Four. Ferdinand Four is short. He is called Freddy according to me. This book is about a very small Parsi community which they immigrated to India from an ancient area Ariana. Ferdi traveled to Lahore with his pregnant with a mother-in-law and daughter too. He start a new life. Their purses are those which are Zoroastrian dead. They worship fear. This book is about every event of Perdia family and the culture of their relation new days. Small and this community is and India and danger of action. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, my name is Hamid Jolly, one of the participants of BCAP Panjsher province. Our today's session was about one of the book, The Creators. Today I would like to share something about the author of the book, Babsi Sidwa. First of all, Babsi Sidwa is widely recognized as one of the most prominent Pakistani Anglophone novelist writing today. Sidwa was born on August 11, 1938 in Karachi, Pakistan, then part of India, and her family belonged to the Paris ethnic community which practiced the Zoroastrian religion. She received a bachelor degree from Kinneret College for Women in 1956. After her first husband died, she married Naushir businessman in 1963, whom three children. In 1975, Sidwa served as Pakistan delegate to the Asian Women Congress in 1983. And in 1983 became a naturalized American citizen. And she also called a feminist because her concern as woman and she wants that women should be equal rights in a society. And also she is praised in New York Times. And uh, last, thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Hello, I am Abdul Khabir. I'm going to tell you my review of the Crow Eater's book. An interesting story whose only direction and purpose seem to be keep moving forward the Farsi culture. The Indian history it's set in and devoured and well-developed characters, all very well managed to keep things afloat in a very slow pace. Rather, ordinary people didn't mind much the extravagant writing a trend common in the subcontinental writers of the olden days, and found it rather beautiful. The book had its moments, but forced me at times to pick up other books in parallel to it, in order to keep satisfying my literary needs. Thank you.
In the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most powerful, this is Parvez Hassani, one of participants from Panjsher Book Club across border. Today I want to tell you something about one of the storybook of crow eaters. Once upon a time there was a young merchantman by the name of Faridun Jangalwala, which called Freddy. He was from central of India and he was a handsome man with voice soft. One day he dragged his wife, child, and his mother-in-law over 1,000 miles in a rickety car to start a new life in Lahore. The Jangalwala increased the size of the small community from 4 to 5 family. Also, they find a tolerant home and a good place to conduct business. Although Jirbanu, the mother-in-law of Freddy, was so wealthy and had lots of influence grew in community, but unfortunately, Freddy can't always find the same comfort which he had in his own home. The Jangalwala revered the English and the copying from mannerism way of their investment. Even we can say the Jangalwala with his mother-in-law Jirbonu. Both of them were so kindly persons, and this was the summary of this story which I can catch from this story. Hope you enjoy and have a great time.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to all members of Book Club across the border. I am Wahadullah Rohani from Afghanistan Panjsher province, a member of this program. So I am depressed because of we can't establishing our session physically, and this book I chose the sixth part, and the sixth part came about fall season in Lahore. By the fall season of Lahore started a smile or happiness in that province, and also the weather was very warm outside the sun, and outside the sun and being or still in the house was pleasant. The month of October can have unpredictable days, especially this Saturday was very hot, and the 1 o'clock become very hot. And also Jirbonu got a student or got a boy for working on the fan, and the fan was at the length of her bed, and her student or her boy want squid the fan down and up, and when Jerbonu was the siesta, and also accidentally Jerbonu get up from sleeping and dozed on her boy or her student, and also her student think this is a very bad action, and he resigned his job and said this is very boring job. This was my main idea from the sixth part of the Crow Eater book. Finish.
Thank you so much, everyone, for connecting with us today. It was lovely hearing from all of you. Keep on reading, keep on sharing books, keep on exchanging books with your friends, and we'll see you next time, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.